This program is brought to you by thepodcastfactory.com.
Canine Crew, it's time to just sell the damn thing. Doberman Dan is revealing his contrarian formula for getting a rush of new customers, building your business faster, and making the highest possible profits. Go to justsellthedamnthing.com to get your copy today.
Prepare yourself for the uncensored, nothing held back, no BS reality of how business and life really work. Doberman Dan is off the chain.
Jonathan, what was your high school experience like? Was it a positive one?
There's no record that I was ever in high school, so either it all disappeared or I got rid of it.
Was that a result of smoking too much weed that killed too many brain cells and killed the memory of high school?
Oh, no, I was such a bad kid, bro. We can't even get into it, but I spent most of my senior year suspended.
So you didn't conform. You wouldn't bow and kiss the ring, huh?
Doesn't it make sense?
Makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense that you wound up doing what you're doing. You would have had the exact same behavior in a job. You wouldn't have been able to hold a job, man. You would have gotten fired. Eventually, you would have gotten fired. You're not going to kiss the ring. You're not going to conform.
You can't put daddy in a corner. That's what it's about.
You can't put daddy in a corner. You gotta do something. You gotta write a newsletter with that as a title or something to go with your daddy's working.
That's right. Coming at you. So what do you have for us today, Dan? It's going to be so hard to top last one that I don't think you should even try. So
okay, then I'm going to quit right now while I'm ahead.
There you go.
In my imagination, I'm imagining I'm ahead. My high school experience was different. I didn't conform. And that led to a lot of interesting things. One was a situation with Mr. Fleming, my sophomore English teacher at Barberton High School in Ohio. Actually, it was Dr. Fleming. The dude had a PhD and was teaching high school English. I mean,
weird.
You know, talk about overeducated. But actually, terms like professor, teacher, doctor, those are just titles awarded by the state for serving the belief system of the state. They're definitely not a confirmation of intelligence, which certainly was the case of Mr. Fleming. This guy even wrote a book about Barberton, Ohio. I think the only copy that was ever sold was the copy in the Barberton Public Library. And who would want to read about Barberton? But whatever. That's not my topic. I'm just making the typical mistake of clearing my throat before getting to
still injured.
Anywho, Mr. Fleming was a drunk. I'm not making this up. For a short period of time, before I was in high school, my mom taught as a teacher at Barberton High School. And she saw Mr. Fleming pass out in his soup at a teacher's, holiday party. The guy was a drunk. So he'd come into class hungover because I had him first period of the day. And, rather than have to teach because he's nursing a hangover, he'd show us one of those, this will totally date me, but he'd show us one of those crappy old 16 millimeter educational films that, was made back in the 50s, the ones that had the audio like this. You'll have to turn it off with a steering wheel, the really bad quality. So he could sit in the back of the room sipping the coffee he brought in his thermos, which was spiked with vodka or spiked with something.
Really?
Yeah, you could smell it. He'd sit in the back of the room. Some mornings he'd even open the window and he'd smoke in class, just blow it out. But this dude, this was like a hulking dude. He's probably at least 6'2", 300 pounds, a big guy. And here's, none of us could hardly understand what the hell he was saying. And this guy taught English, for Pete's sake. He just had a weird way of speaking. Like anytime one of us students raised our hand and asked, Mr. Fleming, he'd respond by saying, Raffum? Or at least that's what it sounded like to me. So, and I was a bad kid, man. That was just all kinds of fodder for making fun. But one time we had this assignment. We were in the library for class, anything he could do to get out of actually teaching us so he could sip his vodka spiked coffee.
Yikes.
So he tells us, we all need to go to the library in the school. We all need to go to the library and read a classic book. So I've got my little crowd of admirers around me, and I'm reading whatever classic book I selected. I'm reading this out loud.
Mad Magazine.
If only. I had no interest in the classics back then, so I just want to do anything to try to make it entertaining for me. And yeah, I wanted the attention. I wanted to be entertaining for my classmates. So I'm reading this classic book and aloud in various voices I could do at the time, like Popeye, so you're reading Thoreau in the voice of Pop.
Oh, the majority of men live lives of quiet desperation. Wow.
Or Tom Snyder. Tom Snyder was on I used to do a Tom Snyder. This will totally didn't. That's such a data reference. People don't even know him. Or I used to like to do, read these books in the voice of that big, fat, dumb Irish cop that always was stereotyped in the Bugs Bunny cartoon. So here I am surrounded by my little band of admirers all laughing, and I didn't see, but storming up behind me, I hear this coming up behind me, and it's Mr. Fleming, and he reaches over my shoulder and rips the book out of my hands, and he bellows at me in this stern tone. I mean, they even heard him down the hall, man. He's like, Raffum Fraffum Scraffum Wazoo. And, of course, my little crowd of admirers scatters quickly in fear. And there I am turned around facing this guy alone. I look upward at this big, massive 300 pounds of pissed off bulk standing over me. And I start backing away like people do when they've been surprised and confronted by a giant angry grizzly bear. I'm backing away slowly, from him. And I shut up. I grabbed another book, sat down on my assigned table and just read a book for the rest of the class without muttering a peep. He scared the living daylights out of me. So after Mr. Fleming had waddled his way back to his seat with the book he ripped out of my hands, one of my friends said, "Whoa, dude. What did he say to you?" No idea. To this day, no idea. Well, whatever it was, he was extremely passionate about it. By the way, to this day, whenever my best friend from high school calls me, I answer the phone when I see it's him calling. I answer the phone, Raffum Fraffum Scraffum Wazoo, instead of saying hello. So that's my little ode to Mr. Fleming. Also a memorial to Mr. Fleming. Whenever I write any kind of advertorial, whether it's for online or offline, I always write it as written by William Fleming. That was his first name, William Fleming. Now, of course, nobody gets it, but it makes me laugh. My little inside joke will appear in thousands of newspapers. It amuses me. Anywho, here's my point. We all know, or should know, for that matter, that word choices are important, but word choices, that's not what persuades people. That's not what makes the sale. It's the emotions behind the words. That's what makes them come alive. It's one of the biggest differences between an A-level writer and a B-level writer. The B-level dude thinks he can wordsmith his way to success. The A-level writer keeps things on a conversational 6th grade reading level, but he or she does whatever it takes to get himself in the state of mind necessary to infuse passion and emotions into that copy, into those words. Even though I didn't even know it at the time, Mr. Fleming taught me one of the most important copywriting lessons of my career. So to him and all the other mentors who have taught me the copywriting lessons that have allowed me to live a life most mere mortals can only dream about. I say, in tribute, Raffum Fraffum Scraffum Wazoo.
Love it. Thanks, Mr. Fleming. We appreciate you, buddy.
Good old Mr. Fleming. I doubt anybody I went to high school with ever listens to my podcast. They just went a different direction than I did. But in the slight infinitesimal chance, there's that word again, I like infinitesimal chance, that they do listen to this and they had Mr. Fleming teach English, they will back me up. They will corroborate that half the time they didn't know what the hell that dude was saying. But it just didn't matter in the library episode because I got the meaning and I got it really damn quick. And for a short period of time, those emotions he expressed did get me to conform temporarily.
Just for that period. So, Dan, what are some of the things you do? Because I think I'm, all right, so I'll confess, I think I might be like a sociopath or something because I don't think I have empathy and I try to have empathy when I write. But how do you do that? What do you do to get yourself in that mindset?
Well, in some instances, it's pretty easy. Like the reason I chose after I discovered direct response marketing, the reason I chose the bodybuilding market to go after for that mail order business was because I was the market. Like I knew their fears, their pain points, their deepest desires, and I knew the motivating factors behind those desires, the stuff that they don't state. You know, they state the obvious stuff. Well, I want big arms. I want to be big and strong. But, you know, they never overtly state the reasons behind why they want that stuff and the emotions and all that stuff behind. I totally got that. So when I wrote for that market, like, you know, no learning curve to go through there. It's similar when I write for my Marketing Camelot, or when I write for my Just Sell the Damn Thing book, or I write for any products or services I develop for the nights in my Marketing Camelot. Like I know that market like the back of my hand. So that's, you know, it's easy to get in that mindset. I totally resonate with the same feelings and desires and fears that they have. You know, if you got to do it for something that you're not that familiar with, I still feel the best way to develop empathy and find out all the deep-seated real reasons they want what they're buying is you got to get face-to-face, belly-to-belly. So a good example is like, I don't need to do it anymore for health stuff, but if I were starting the health market, I'd plant my cute little perfectly symmetrical white booty on that gray gunmetal bench that's there at the Walmart pharmacy. And I'd keep my ass stuck in that place for several hours trying to strike up conversations with the geezers there. Geezers used to be so much funnier when I was in my 30s. But I'd try to strike up.
Now you're joining them.
Yeah. Now that I'm 39, it's not so funny. You know, I'd try to talk to the geezers. And like, what I really want to get to is like, hey, man, I imagine it sucks having diabetes. Tell me more about that. You know, like, you know, and try to get really deep into their fears and what's motivating them to take action to conquer these health challenges. Empathy, you know, I disagree with you that you don't have any empathy. Why do you say that?
You know what? I live in a world where I'm constantly paranoid that I don't know my market well enough. I think that's really what it comes down to.
Well, I believe that you do know your market, but here's the thing. I mean, no matter how well you know it, you got to keep your finger on the pulse of it. So, I mean, you're probably constantly talking to clients or potential clients. You know, it's probably to get a better connection, to empathize more deeply is probably to start digging in deeper, you know, when they talk about the problems or, you know, their business isn't making the money they want to make or the challenges they're facing, you know, start asking them how that affects their life and how do they feel about that. And a lot of people, if you'll just, you know, shut your big pie hole and listen, they'll get to it. They'll tell you, you know, what you need to know. Of course, you know, in our world, everybody says they want to make more money. But if you'll dig deep enough, you'll find these really deep-seated emotions about why they want to make more money. And if you'll dig deep enough, if you're not a sociopath and you are empathetic, you may not be crying with them. Maybe that's just not your thing, but you'll feel it. You'll at the very least relate. It's hard not. We got these mirror neurons as human beings, which they say dolphins have them also. That it's almost like, again, unless you're a sociopath, it's almost like you can't help but feel their pain, to quote one famous puppet. Yeah, I think that's the secret, just be willing to dig deep enough to get to those issues and emotions.
Yeah. And this is at an interesting time that I'm hearing you talk about this, because right now we were at a mastermind, and one of the things I came away with, I had two big takeaways, and one of them was to review my avatar every 90 days, because I was speaking to an outdated version of my avatar, and all my marketing and everything was suffering because of it.
That's a good point. Last week's podcast was partly motivated by that, partly motivated, like I said in last week's show, by the people I know making millions that are going to wind up broke if they don't heed the advice I gave in last week's show. But another part was just having conversations and reading emails from some of the Knights of my marketing Camelot, and finding out that, I'm targeting people who own businesses that want to improve those businesses using my style of marketing. But also there are people attracted to me that don't yet have a business, that have the hope of starting a business. Or maybe if they've gone beyond the hope thing, they're actually trying to start a business, or have tried in the past and failed. So, that's part of my market too, which is a delicate balance. Like, to try to address those two markets, it almost gets to the point where you might have to repel one to just solely focus on the other. But what's ironic is I did that transition somewhat recently to just focus on people who had an existing business and sell, for all intents and purposes, what is business improvement. But still, the wanapreneurs, whatever you want to call them, the future entrepreneurs, are still attracted to that message. So I got to keep my finger on the pulse of two markets and try to balance the messaging and even editorial content for both.
Yeah. Interesting. Who knew we were going there?
Who knew we were going there from Raffum Fraffum Scraffum Wazoo?
Right? Sociopathy, all kinds of good stuff today. All right. So is anything else you want to say before wrapping this one up?
I'm out. I'm talked out.
All right. Another Off the Chain show is in the can, boys and girls. Canine Crew, we will be back next time. Hope you enjoyed today's show. Canine Crew got a special treat for you, what we are affectionately referring to as the Off the Chain Hotline. Tell us you love us, tell us you hate us, ask questions. We don't care. Just call 321-424-6043 and give us a piece of your mind.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.